Mr. Hershey had a plan for us. If you recall, I mentioned how he bought up farms all around what is now Hershey, Pennsylvania. And when we got to age 12, he put us on one of those farms. He built homes large enough to accommodate 20 boys on each farm. And his plan was 10 of those 20 boys would do housework, and 10 boys would milk cows. Milk cows, yes, he had that as a part of his plan. Every 2 weeks, the two groups would switch. The ones doing house chores would become milkers. The milkers would start doing house chores. So we learned two things. We learned as husbands to take care of our own house by doing house chores. Milking, Mr. Hershey had 2 milking times a day, morning and late afternoon. And on each farm with 10 boys milking, he put 30 cows on each farm. And what he did then, he had each boy take care of 3 cows. We had to learn to feed them. We had to learn to thoroughly wash them so they'd be nice and clean before milking. And then we had to learn how to milk cows. He did that for a reason, to teach us 2 things. The 2 times, as I mentioned, in the morning and late afternoon, wherever we were, we had to learn a lesson to be in the milking parlor at the right time. And by doing that, he taught us to be responsible for whatever we do. The milking that we got each day would go to the Hershey dairy to be pasteurized. The milk once a month, and we never knew when, it would be a big surprise. Once a month, that milk was tested for cleanliness to see how thoroughly we washed the cows. If we passed the cleanliness test, the home would get a 5-gallon jug of ice cream. If we failed the test, we got nothing. But we knew then that at least one boy of the 10 did not wash his cows thoroughly. So by doing that, Mr. Hershey was teaching us to be responsible. We had to be responsible to the other 9 boys to make sure that we washed our cows thoroughly. So as long as we, every month, passed the test, we kept getting ice cream. Now, in each home, there were 2 couple house parents. And that way, if one couple took a day off, there was always the other couple to be there to take care of us. One day, Mr. Hershey was informed that the one couple was going to retire in the home I was living in. So now Mr. Hershey would have to hire another couple who were familiar with farming. And what he did in 1937, this was in 38, in 1937 in Germany, Hitler started to persecute the Jewish people. And the one thing he did there was, the first thing, he denied the Jewish people from purchasing the commodities of life. For example, they could not purchase sugar. And he thought this would cause many Jewish people to leave Germany. Well, that didn't work. So in 1938, he tried a different plan. He offered to pay Jewish people to pay their way out of Germany. And he included in that ocean-going ships to New York Harbor. Mr. Hershey then, knowing that some of these Jewish people were coming to New York Harbor, what he did, he secretly, and as far as I know, none of these biographies knew about this trip to New York. Mr. Hershey went to New York and he met a ship coming in from Germany with Jewish people. And he talked to the Jewish people as they got off the ship, looking for a married couple with farm experience. He finally found a married couple, and he hired them right there in New York and brought them back to what is now Hershey, Pennsylvania. And they became the second parents on the farm that I was living on. At meal times in the dining room, there was always one house parent at each table to teach us manners, eating manners. And the next morning after arriving at breakfast, I was seated at the same table as the new house parent, and that was Mr. Stern, Mr. and Mrs. Stern from Germany. And sitting at the same table, when the bowl of cereal came to the table, I noticed Mr. Stern, when he put multiple spoons of sugar on his bowl of cereal. I guess he was so glad to be able to have sugar again after being denied in Germany with no sugar. So that was a big surprise. So I graduated then from Mr. Hershey's Industrial School in 1940. At the graduation, Mr. Hershey handed me my diploma, and I moved in out of the Hershey Industrial School. But my benefit from Mr. Hershey did not end there. My working career, I determined, was highly influenced by Mr. Hershey. During the World War II, when I was in the military, I became interested in electronics. And after World War II, all veterans were offered free college education. So what I did, I enrolled in the New York Technical Institute for Electronics. And electronics then gave me my good job. I spent a job 32 years at the Westinghouse Defense Center here at the airport. And I was put on the first program, a new radar that was being developed. And the radar then was being developed for a new airplane that was being developed by Douglas Aircraft out in California, development for the Navy. So by 1957, we were ready to produce the radar and ship them to California. My top manager asked me one day, please go to California for 5 weeks to teach Douglas employees how to test the radar. Because when they were ready to sell their airplane to the Navy, they had to show that all systems worked, and including the radar. So they had to know how to test the radar. So I was out there for 5 weeks. When I came back from California, the airplane, incidentally, when the Navy inspector purchased it, it was flown to the Naval Air Station in Jacksonville, Florida. When I came back from California, my top manager said, how about going to Florida now for 5 weeks and teach Navy employees how to test the radar? So there I am, 5 more weeks in Florida. And my daughter is sitting here, and my son over there was 9 months old at the time. But I took him, so we all spent 5 weeks in Florida. So on weekends, we became Florida tourists. But I was down there at all expenses paid by Westinghouse. Later in my career, excuse me, I based on being selected for these California and Florida based on what Mr. Hershey taught me, which I'll show you in a minute. Because there are other employees that the top manager could have selected, but why me? Later in my career, I ran into a similar situation. I had joined a technical society, the American Society for Quality. And 1 year in 1980, the society asked Westinghouse to borrow an employee to plan the technical conference for the 1982 conference in Detroit, Michigan. My top manager again asked me, and there were other employees who joined the society, but again he selected me. Now this was the second top manager. In 1985, the 82 conference must have gone very well, because in 1985 the society asked to borrow an employee again. Again, that top manager asked me to take the assignment. I ended up with 6 years of no Westinghouse work, but I was paid by Westinghouse. I was treated as an employee of Westinghouse. The big difference was all of my travel expenses were paid by Westinghouse when I did work for the society. It left me free. I was like my own boss at Westinghouse. I could come and go as it fit my schedule. I could fly anywhere in the country I wanted, no questions asked. All I had to do was ask the top secretary, boss's secretary, to get me a ticket. If there was a meeting in San Francisco for the society and I wanted to go, all I had to do was ask for a ticket to San Francisco. So I was my own boss, as you can see. So for 6 years, I did no Westinghouse work. Now that left me thinking, why was I selected again for all of these no Westinghouse work 6 years? And again, I attribute all of that to what Mr. Hershey taught me: to be reliable and to be responsible. Somehow, these top managers must have seen that in whatever work I was doing to select me over other employees. So I just wanted to let you know that somehow they saw that. And today I want to thank Mr. Hershey for what he did for me. He not only saved me as a child, he helped me in my working career. And one point I forgot to mention, while I was in the school, Mr. Hershey would leave his chocolate factory and come out unannounced to check on us, to make sure we were all being taken care of the way he wanted. But to show you how much he cared for us, he would leave his chocolate factory. So that's my talk for today. You saw how I was saved, how he saved my mother, how he was caring for other people, the Jewish couple that he hired. He cared for other people. He gave his fortune to the school, but how many people know all of that other than eating a good Hershey bar? So you can see why my first question was, did you ever have a Hershey bar? Now the next time you eat a Hershey bar, just think of all the benefit that he did in addition to making that chocolate bar available. And just think how fortunate I was that he did. The other question, remember, I asked you if you were ever raised by your own mother and father. You can see how in 1929, when Mr. Hershey took me in, that's the day I lost my mother, because she went back home. So in 29, I had lost then my mother and father. So I wanted you to know how fortunate all of you were or are by being raised by your own mother and father. That's my talk for today. I'm going to open now for any questions that you may have.
Yeah.
Oh, question? Come here. Take the microphone, and so everybody can hear.
Hold on. Once you can hold on to that one.
Okay. I'll hold on to this one. Bill has a question.
Okay, question.
Ken, during the time that I've known you, I've always wanted to ask this question. And the question is, Mr. Hershey, with all his generosity and everything, why hasn't he considered girls in his plan?
Oh, good question.
Hold on.
Good question.
This will be easier.
First of all, Bill, we have to consider society in 1912. In 1912, when he took in the first 4 boys, society was totally different then than it is today. In 1912, the housewife became very important in the home all day long. For example, there were no ice boxes in those days. I mean, no refrigerators. There were ice boxes. So every day, the wife had to get a block of ice to put in the ice box. The iceman every day would come down the street in his horse and wagon with a big block of ice. The housewife would have a card in the front window, and the card, the number at the top, would tell him what size block of ice to cut for that lady. And then he would take the block of ice into the house, through the house, and put it in the ice box. So you can see it would be way too heavy for a housewife, but she had to be home during the day. She could not be off working somewhere. Today, with refrigerators, for example, the housewife is way off. In those days, the husband was the breadwinner. The housewife, then, as I mentioned to you a little while ago, my mother became a housewife out of school. The housewife became very important. Stores, many stores in 1912 did not have cold storage facilities. They had to rely, the housewife had to rely on the milkman coming down the street with his horse and wagon, and he would put milk and butter in a box at the front door. And sometime during the day, the wife would come and get it and put it in the ice box. Now with a block of ice, the ice would melt. The wife had to be home during the day. On the floor under the ice box was a pan that would collect the melted ice. That pan had to be empty. So you can see in those days, it was more important for the husband since he was the breadwinner. And Mr. Hershey had that in mind, that he could save more futures in the family if he provided husbands. And that's why he took in boys. Because if he took in, say, 50 boys and 50 girls, and they all married, he would only end up with 50 families. This way he could end up with 100 if he took 100 boys. So to answer your question, I hope I answered.
Sure have, yeah.
I have answered it. Thank you. Anybody else with a question?
Anybody
Well,
else?
I hope I must have given you enough information to show the good side of Mr. Hershey. He saved me. I'm sure I would have been on the streets as a child if it were not for Mr. Hershey. So, that's my story for today. So, thank you all again. Now don't forget there's going to be a little social now before you walk out of the room. Thank you again. I hope to talk to each of you a little bit. Thank you.